So Simmers, and welcome back to a brand new speed build. Today we're doing something so mega exciting because we are building the Shire from Lord of the Rings. If you have seen the movies, you know that this is a beautiful, lush landscape, and also that it's actually filmed in New Zealand, so that's why we are building it. I'll give you a little bit of background on why we're doing this speed build because it is part of the Builders games, and I can imagine that you might have clicked on this video and you're like, Builders games? What is she talking about? So I want to give a little bit of an explanation of the Builders games as a concept at the start of every video. However, this is actually the build for the finals. So if you do like speed builds and you want to see more things that I build, feel free to check out my channel. I have a playlist with all of the builds that I did for the Builders games. But to give you a bit of context, the Builders games is a Sims competition hosted by Simmers for Simmers, and every season they have a different theme, and this season's theme was World Tour, which basically means that every single week, if you were to win the challenge, you would get given a brand new location in the world that you would have to build something from. And for the finals, they decided to go for New Zealand, Waikato, which is actually where the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings was filmed. So the Shire, the Hobbit village, is actually located there. You can also go visit it IRL if you wanted to. They do tours and everything. So we looked at a lot of inspiration pictures naturally. I also made sure to rewatch Lord of the Rings before I started this build because I wanted to make sure that I had everything in my brain power ready to make this the most beautiful build I have ever done. And I have to tell you, this was such a challenging build. I had to do everything from landscaping to interior to spatial planning. It was like truly a build that challenged me on all aspects of building. So to give you a little context on what we're doing right now is we're actually starting with the spatial planning of the lot. Obviously, this is a 64 by 64, or well, I'm saying obviously, but it's a big lot. So it's a 64 by 64. We are building in, I keep forgetting the world name. It is Henford-on-Bagley, so the world that is supposed to represent Britain, because I felt like the area around it kind of represented New Zealand the best, so that's why we went here. Also, there is actually not that many 64 by 64 lots in the game, so that's why I decided to go here. The assignment for this week was to build the Shire from Lord of the Rings. We had a minimum requirement of a 50 by 50 lot, so that meant that 50 by 50 was the smallest that we could go. But since I had such ambitious plans, I decided to just go for a 64 by 64. If you've seen any of the other builds I've done throughout this challenge, I tend to go for ginormous builds. Every single week, I tell myself, this week I'm going to do something smaller, and then I don't, and I go for a 64 by 64 again. So I was like, why do that for every single week, and then when we get to the finals, actually not do that again? So I just decided to go for a 64 by 64. The build would be judged on interior, exterior, and landscaping. So like I said, very much the full package deal. Like, we had to do all aspects of The Sims. We had to make sure that the train looked good. We had to make sure that the landscaping looked good. We had to make sure that all of the interior fit. We had to add in a lot of details. So there was like so many things that we had to keep into account. And on a 64 by 64 lot, that's really hard to do for the simple reason that there is just a lot of space to work with. So if you want to add detail to all of it, you can only imagine how much time this build would have taken. I'm gonna talk about all of the details and the challenges and stuff with this build throughout this voiceover, although as you can see, this is quite a long speed build, so I think I will voice over just a part of it and then I'll let you enjoy the rest of the build with some nice background music. And I'll always make sure to add some really nice screenshots to give you a little bit of a ground view of this build at the end of the video, so make sure to stick around for that. But to give you a little bit of an idea on what the vision for this build was, so I really wanted to add 3 Hobbit holes because I felt like that was kind of the amount that one would fit on the lot, but also allowed me to kind of make different homes. I first thought of doing 2, but then I was like, you know what? I also would like to add the Green Dragon, which is the kind of the inn or the bar that the hobbits have. And I was like, then it kind of feels more balanced to do 4 builds in total. I figured that that would also work really well with like the spatial planning of the lot. I really wanted to make sure to do lots of lush landscaping, add a lot of plants, make sure that everything felt really overgrown. I wanted to make sure to add a river and a bridge. If you watch Lord of the Rings, you can see that in the landscape there's a big water feature with this beautiful stone bridge that they kind of use as an opening shot to enter into the Shire. And I felt like by doing or adding the river and adding that bridge, it kind of drew your eye into the Shire and into the village, which was something that I really like in the movie. And I was like kind of feeling that it would be cool to recreate that in the Sims build as well. I wanted to also make sure that there was the illusion of the overgrown hills, but since this train tool in The Sims is a little bit of a pain, like, or not, well, yeah, the train tool. I was gonna say train paint, but no, train tool in The Sims is a little bit of a pain because the struggle there is that it actually doesn't really connect directly to the houses. So as you can see with, you know, the walls that I placed, there's kind of a gap there, which made it really hard to use the train tool as the roofs or like as the actual hills. So I ended up going for round roofs and like trying to manipulate them as well as I could. So I wanted to make sure to add that and like have that illusion of the hills. I will be doing so much landscaping in this video. I think the key to landscaping village or like things like this, built like this, is just placing layers upon layers upon layers. I placed so many plants, and funnily enough, one of the judges, as the who gave the scores on the end result, even said that they would have liked to see more landscaping, more lush overgrown parts on the roofs, where I felt like, you know, usually hills are not fully overgrown, they're also just grass. But hey, even this amount of landscaping that I'm going to do in this video, for some people it's still not enough, but you'll see towards the end of the video how much landscaping I exactly did. So something that could be interesting to point out about this build is that, like I said, we used roofs for the hills. I actually end up changing that as we go through the build, because every single time I looked at it, I saw another detail that I kind of wanted to tweak. But interesting, if you're watching this video and you're like, oh, I also want to learn how to be a better builder, is something that we did. If you actually select a roof in The Sims and you do Shift C, you actually get a bunch more roofing controls. I do also have a full video on how to do roofing in The Sims as part of my builder's bootcamp, so I'll make sure to link that down below if you're interested in also becoming a better builder in The Sims. But that is one of my pro tricks. It is so incredibly useful when you're trying to do roofs that have a little bit more curve or are a little bit more detailed than just the default roof shape. And we used it a ton in this build. Also, you see me doing the roof right now for the green dragon. So that's like the inn. And I cannot do that. Like, I could have not done this roof without the extra roof controls. So Shift C will give you a bunch of extra controls on the roof, and it is honestly so incredibly helpful. Something else that could be really interesting is that later on, you'll see me trying to fiddle around with the round doors. Obviously, Hobbit holes have round doors, and The Sims does not have round doors. So we had to get really creative with figuring out how to kind of make it look like there were round doors, but also not make it look awkward, because we do have round windows, and one could argue that you can just add a round window into it and then it would magically work. However, that looked really awkward, so I end up like combining some things in the kind of like, or around the window. So I use an archway, and then I place the archway on the basement level and I size it up. So there is a whole lot of creativity involved in trying to get the round doors to look good. It would be interesting to hear your thoughts on like how you would have done this. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any ideas on how you would have done a Hobbit door in The Sims. Because the finalists, actually there were 5 of us, all kind of went for something similar. Although some of us, and I am very much calling out my friend Alex here. I'll make sure to link his socials down below, because he made a door out of base game. His entire build was base game, and he made a door with tool, and I will continue to rant about this door because it is so amazing. I've literally never seen someone make such a great door in The Sims. Anyways, moving on, please make sure to check out Alex's socials. He's an absolutely fantastic builder, also streams live on Twitch just like me. So if you're looking for a cozy simmer, then this is slightly chaotic simmer, this is honestly the place that you should go. Something else that you'll notice me do in this build is I used a lot of tool for this landscaping. I genuinely think I could not have done this build without tool, because I needed to adjust the layers and adjust the height of plants and stuff to have it overlap so much, and also trying to landscape roofs, which are naturally not things in The Sims that you would place a lot of plants on. It was definitely a challenge, so huge shout out to Twisted Mexi for making the tool mod, because a build like this would have never ever been possible without tool. Even creating the round doors, like I said, placing something on the basement level, sizing it up, and then getting it exactly in the right placement. I could not have done this without tool. So if you're like ever wanting to become a better builder, I am 100% not a tool expert. I know very little about tool, but just the ability to have a little bit more control on raising and lowering things or sizing things up or down already makes such a huge difference. One of my goals for this year is actually to get a lot better at using Tool, because I know it is an incredibly powerful tool for The Sims and I've never used it to its full extent. And I know a couple of friends of mine have made incredible tutorials for it, so I want to make sure that I watch those and like learn about Tool, because I think it would unlock such a vast realm of creativity if I would be better at using Tool. But I highly recommend downloading it and like experimenting with it if you're a builder in The Sims and you're looking for something to like unlock the next part of your creativity. Tool is honestly fantastic. I also used a ton of debug items. You actually just saw me place one, the water wheel. This little house will actually turn into kind of a shared bathroom. We had a whole debate on stream whether hobbits would have their own bathroom or whether they would have like a shared kind of washing space. And we figured that since the timing of this story, like if you were to place it in our like human timeline, it would probably be somewhere around the Middle Ages. Most of the time, people probably had a shared bathing space rather than their own bathroom in their house. So we actually ended up adding some showers and some toilets and stuff in that water wheel house, because I figured that would look kind of cute. But also I know that there is the scene in the actual film where they do have the water wheel, which you can actually see on the side of one of the buildings. So I immediately thought when watching that movie, I was like, oh my God, I need to add that water wheel from Debug. But also the bridge that you saw me place earlier is also from Debug. I use a lot of Debug items also in the landscaping and everything. So again, huge shout out to TwistedMexi for creating the Better Build By mod, because I don't think I could have done this if I had to sort through all of the actual debug items, because then they're not organized and it's a pain to do that. If you ever want to use more debug items, the Better Build By mod by TwistedMexi is like a godsend, because TwistedMexi actually went through all of the pain of sorting the debug items into the right category, and it is as soon as you know what it's like to build with that, there is no way of going back. So literally this video is, I think, just an homage to TwistedMexi, because I don't think I could have done any of this without their mods. So thank you. Then to give you a little bit of background on some of the homes that we're going to be building, because I think it's interesting to see when the furniture or like the furnishing part begins, that you have a bit of an idea of what the vision was for me for all of these homes. So I wanted to make sure that I had at least one really cozy hobbit home. I feel like when you look at Bilbo's home in the movies, it is so cluttered, so cozy, so warm, has a lot of natural colors. So I wanted to make sure to represent that in one of the homes. I'll end up doing that on the one that is most on the left, because I figured that was like, it made sense for me to start there, but also I had a vision for like the spacing of that home. So I made it into a 1-bedroom hobbit home that looks really worn down. It looks like someone's been living there for a very long time. Probably multiple generations of hobbits have been living there. And one could say that it might be Bilbo's home. It might be a little bit inspired by Bilbo. There are a lot of books and like maps and everything. So it is definitely a home of a hobbit that has seen a bit more of the world than the average hobbit, because for those of you that know, hobbits don't really like to travel outside of the Shire. Usually they only travel or like they hang out within their little community. They're very safe at home. Bilbo is actually a very unique hobbit for traveling the world. So I tried to represent that kind of in this hobbit home. So the first one is the one all the way on the left. Then the second one is the one in the middle. I end up making it a really colorful home. I figured it could be so fun to kind of almost go the complete opposite direction of the first home that I did. And it is for a hobbit family with 2 kids. So there is a kid's bedroom where there is actually 2 beds. I also sneakily added some archways like in all of the spaces where I added a round window to create a hole in the wall. So technically this build should be functional. I have not play tested it. I want to be completely upfront about that. I built this for the purpose of building. I did not play test it, but from other people in chat, I actually heard that if you add an archway that you kind of hide with Tool, your sim should be able to walk through it. So just so you guys know, there is actually a chance that you can play in this build. However, it is definitely not built for playing, so there might be some things that are not ideal for actually playing in it. But if you want to live out your Shire and your Lord of the Rings dreams, feel free to download it. It's up on my gallery. My gallery name is just Rosannatxt, and you can absolutely play in this. And then the middle home is for a hobbit family with 2 kids, and I kind of envisioned these hobbits to be the artists of the town, or like the musicians of the town. So they have a lot of arts and crafts stuff in their house. Their house is extremely colorful. It's almost like a rainbow home. They have a lot of musical instruments, and yeah, it's just one of those families that are just always happy and always cheerful. And if you visit this hobbit family, you would probably just walk out the door feeling extremely psyched and extremely happy, because they're just that good, like positive and good vibes. And then the third hobbit home, the one all the way on the right, is actually a hobbit home for a family of 3, so parents and a kid. And the idea is that I had for this, obviously the Crystal Creations pack has just come out, and it literally came out as we were building this, and I really wanted to use the item, so I was like, why not kind of tie in some lore? So one of the hobbits living here is actually a jewelry maker. They might have had something to do with the creation of a certain ring, but who knows? It's, you know, it's never really talked about. It is kind of a secret that is well kept within the Hobbit village. But one of them actually makes jewelry out of all of the materials that they find in and around the Shire. And then the other hobbit is really into gardening and like making potions. I can see them being kind of the medicine person of the Shire. So they take care of all the sick hobbits. They make sure to make them potions. They grow all of the fresh produce in the Shire. So like later on, I also add a little market with like lemons and potatoes. As we know, potatoes are very important to hobbits. So I made sure that there is a gardener in the Shire, so that they actually have someone doing all the work. I end up adding a little greenhouse next to their house because I had some extra space to work with. And I think it all turned out really cute. I do really think that all of the hobbits have their own home and their own personality, and it's very different from each other. So I really enjoyed that, kind of coming up with the backstory of all of the Sims living here. I think this is also one of my main tips if you are trying to improve your building and you want to give your builds a little bit more character, a little bit more kind of like creative diversity, so to say, instead of kind of repeating what you always do in every build, is come up with a backstory for the Sims living there and like try to incorporate their personality into the build, because it's gonna make it feel and look like it's so much more alive. It does make the build a little bit more specific sometimes, so if you're a person who likes to build for like more generic builds on the galleries so that people can download them and then make them their own, then maybe that's not really the way to go. But if you're really trying to like practice, for instance, building for your legacy family, or if you just want to get better at building in general, I always feel like it helps so much for me to envision what kind of Sims will be living there, because it's going to make it so much easier to pick out like what kind of decorations you want to use, what kind of color scheme you want to use, etc. So those are the 3 homes in the Shire. I also end up decorating the Green Dragon. They have a bar, a dance floor. They have like a little kind of shared library nook, or some sort of shared living space for all the hobbits. And they have this beautiful square that I'm making right now in front of the Green Dragon, where I also end up adding this really big table with a bunch of glasses and a bunch of food, because obviously they just celebrated Bilbo's birthday, and I really wanted to make it look like there was a party ongoing from the previous evening. Something that might be interesting to share with you about this build is the biggest challenges that we faced. Some of them I actually already mentioned, but making it balanced was genuinely, I cannot stress enough how difficult it was to make sure that every single part of this build got equal attention. Like that I made sure to not rush the interior, or not rush the landscaping, or rush all of the spatial planning, because there was just so much happening in this build all at once that I needed to make sure to practice some patience. And also kind of like, I worked on this build over the course of 2 weeks, and I made sure to never build for longer than like 3.5 hours in one sitting, because otherwise you start to kind of become tired of what you're doing and you will rush the process. So that was really, really one of the challenges. And I think in total, the amount of time that this build took is not the average time that I would spend on a build. I think we spent about 20 to 24 hours in total on this one single build. So it was definitely a huge challenge to do that. Something else, like I already mentioned, the spatial planning, making sure that everything fit on the lot, but not only fit on the lot, but also made sense in terms of like the size. So obviously you don't want to take up a huge chunk of the lot by just the river, but you also don't want to make a really narrow creek and then have all of the houses be huge. So I needed to get all of the proportions right, and that's what you saw me doing in the beginning of the video, trying to kind of like plan out the lot with terrain paint. I had never actually done this before, but because I felt a little bit overwhelmed by this challenge, I was like, I need to start somewhere. So let me just kind of treat my lot like a canvas and trying to paint it before I actually start building. And this is something that from now on, I think I will do much more often, because it was so incredibly useful to kind of get a feeling of where my buildings would go. I 100% learned this trick from Minecraft. Funnily enough, I've been watching a lot of Hermitcraft recently, and I see them do that all the time, where they use like dirt or filler blocks to kind of get a feeling of what their build should look like and kind of plan it out before they start building. And I was like, can I do that in The Sims? And honestly, it was such a good thing to do. So I highly recommend that if you are like struggling with spatial planning in The Sims, use the terrain paint and kind of just doodle on the lot to figure out how you want to lay things out. Something else that was really challenging here was obviously trying to make it look like Hobbit holes or like the Shire, by only using items from The Sims, because like I already mentioned, we don't have round doors, but there is a bunch of other things that we don't really have in The Sims, or that I had to get quite creative with of recreating. I think also The Sims is generally quite a modern game, so there's like a lot of emphasis on computers and TVs and like kind of things that you wouldn't necessarily see in a fantasy medieval village or of some sort. So it was kind of hard to fill the space, even in interior decoration, to make sure that I didn't use items like a TV or any modern technology that just didn't really fit into the vibe of the build. And I wanted to make sure to stay as true as I could to the original and make sure that I like had kind of captured the feeling of the Shire. So not necessarily one-on-one recreated in The Sims, but make sure that I capture that essence of the Shire and the hobbits and all of those things. Then something else was that the landscaping tool, I've already mentioned this before as well, is so limiting in The Sims. I really wish they would give the landscaping tool a good makeover, or like the terrain tool, because it can be so hella frustrating when you want to create a beautiful landscape and then you place a build and the foundation just kind of rips right through all of the landscaping that you've done. So I would love to see an update to the terrain tool at one point. However, there are many things in the game, like round walls, that I would like to see an update for at one point. I would be this person that I would be okay with no new expansion packs for like a year if they just fix the game. If they just fix existing features and like actually make them more up to date and actually more fitting to like how we want to play the game in this day and age. Let me know in the comments down below if that's something that you recognize. I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Something that I also found a huge challenge was kind of creating, like I said earlier, creating all of those different spaces, making sure that every place in the build had its own character without repeating myself too much. I think, again, this is very related to the fact that we have a lot of modern items in the game that I could just simply not use. So I was very limited to the amount of items that fit with the style of the build that I could use without repeating myself a million times. So I think that was a very interesting challenge of me having to get really creative with the things that we had in game. And I think that is my biggest takeaway from this whole build challenge, is that sometimes giving yourself an impossible assignment does really challenge yourself as a builder, but it also like unlocks a certain part of your creativity that you might not have used before. And it was so fun to do this on stream and have people in chat like think with me, come up with brilliant ideas. Obviously there's so many items in the Sims catalog that I don't know about because there's just too many to actually memorize all of them. So having a challenge like this and then people coming in and saying, hey, have you thought about using this item or this item? It made me fall in love with building in The Sims all over again. And I can highly recommend to anyone, if you're interested, if you're like a builder and you're interested in participating in the Builders games, they already announced the theme for their next season in the Discord. So make sure to navigate through their Instagram. They have all the information on how to join their Discord and how to join the Builders games in general. So feel free to join their Discord and already get a sneak peek of next season's theme. Next season is probably a couple of months away, but I highly recommend keeping an eye out. I might even apply again because I would love to join again because this was such a fun experience. And then also a huge shout out again to my editor, because like I said, this build took about like 20 plus hours at least to make, but every single build that we've done for the Builders games have been edited by Lina. Lina is also a fantastic simmer herself. I could not have done anything without her, because I would not have had the time to cut down all of the footage and then also record voiceovers and stuff. So I made sure to link all of her socials down below. Please make sure to check her channel out, because she is so lovely and so wonderful, and thank you so much for helping me out on this. And then for the moment that we've all been waiting for, because I've already mentioned it a couple of times, this was the finals of the Builders games. So naturally we have to talk about where I placed. That's also why this video is coming out a little bit later than all of the other speed builds in the series, because I wanted to make sure that I got the scoring in so I could give you guys an update and not leave you hanging. So there were 5 people left. We started this competition with 30 builders, and the finals consisted of 5 builders, and we actually ended up placing, a little drum roll, 3rd place. We took home the bronze medal. And honestly, seeing the builds that were submitted for this week, or for like the last week, the finals, I am so incredibly proud and honored that I got to build alongside so many fantastic creators. Every single person went 120% in for this finals. Everyone absolutely blew me away with their details, their landscaping. I'll make sure to link all of the details of the 5 finalists down below as well, because you should absolutely go check out their channels. They're all fantastic builders, and if you're into speed builds or into building in general, these are literally some of the best builders in the community to go follow. So thank you all so much for sticking along with me through this journey of the Builders games, for allowing me to do such a cool project on my live streams, and for all of you who followed here on YouTube, thank you so much for just watching the videos. It means a lot. And yeah, I cannot wait for all the new build challenges to come my way. I do plan on doing more like big builds on stream. I already have a plan coming up for next week, so if you want to join me building the Spice House from Totally Spice while I'm actually dressed as Sam from Totally Spice, feel free to check out my Twitch channel. Everything is linked down below. I stream 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we do play a lot of The Sims, so we would absolutely love to have you there over as well. And if you want to see more builds like this, or if you want to see other Sims videos, I do basically anything related to The Sims on my channel. We are really close to hitting 10K subscribers, so feel free to hit that subscribe button if you want to help me reach that goal. Don't forget to leave a like on this video, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of the video with some nice background music. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye everyone!